probably. So hey everyone, happy Friday. Um, Joined with Sylvan. We're gonna get the show officially started in like a few minutes, but in the meantime, hi. Apologies if I look a little weird. Um, my webcam has had so many weird, just like it randomly decided to just look different today, and so I had to do some little adjustments, and now it looks like my face is pinker than it should be. Probably not to Sylvan because he's seeing me through a different webcam. So
Yeah,
I think that that's probably the
exactly.
way I should look is the way I look there.
Yeah,
Um,
it looks good. It looks good from my end, so hopefully people can enjoy the same quality as well.
yeah, just it's always something, isn't it? You know, that's the thing is
Yeah.
like with my settings. I mean, obviously I use like free open source software for everything, and so
Yeah.
with OBS, I have like a setting. It's all set up perfectly. It all works, and then
uh,
it doesn't some days,
Until
and I hate that.
you have to use it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like typical, or if I get like Teams appointment or Zoom for meetings or like for work and stuff, and then you're like, okay, yeah, I'm all set up, good to go, and then the like 10 minutes before, then the computer messes up, and I gotta restart the computer, and then I barely make it on time. So it's yeah, it's always minutes before. I'm like, it was fine for the last 2 days, and now they gotta go to a meeting. Now it's doing it. I think
Do
it's
you
just
use Linux at all?
I've played with it a little bit.
Mm,
Yeah, well, crypto got me
of
looking
course.
into Linux, but I don't like mine's the Windows. But I was debating if I should get a Linux at some point in
Yeah,
my
that's the thing.
scope.
I've been using Linux since 2017, I guess, the beginning of the year 2017, and it works great for me. There's always like whenever people try to get you to do specific things, there's always like, oh, that's not Linux supported or something. And now
Yeah,
I'm in the process of de-googling my life, and so uh, having a phone with Graphene OS on it,
yeah,
it's a little, I wouldn't say frustrating because I kind of knew it'd be a little tricky, but some of these things about like this app doesn't work, oh, I have to do this weird workaround to get that to work. It's crazy how much of like the world relies on Google services. Like if you
yeah,
and so if you download an app that doesn't on a phone that does not support Google services, it's a very different experience. And it's crazy to me just how deep that is. But
yeah.
um yeah, it's a
Is
fun
that
experiment.
yeah? Because I've heard about the graphene. Yeah, yeah, that's what it is, right? The that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I've heard about that. I think it was your upcoming guest there, Naomi Brockwell, that was talking
Mm-hmm.
about that at some point. I think she was showing
Yeah.
how to use it. So that's yeah, that's interesting. And maybe I should get a is it the Google Pixel that allows
Mm-hmm.
you to like do that? So maybe I should look into getting this one as well as the next phone. Like, is there something preventing like Samsung phones from doing that, or is that like really?
Well, here's the thing. As far as I know, and I'm sorry for people listening if they're bored by this stuff, but I don't care because I'm not bored by it. It's uh, as far as I know, graphene only works on the Pixel, and
Okay.
or I don't know if it only works, but that's where it works best. I have another phone that I'm gonna try to also not have to buy a new phone because I just got the Pixel 6a, which is, I mean, they're up to version 7 now, right? But the 6a is pretty new still, and it was like $300 or something, which I'd rather not do another $300 for like a work phone now. So I'll see. There's other OSs that work, right? That it's not just graphene, although graphene is kind of like the gold standard of, from what I understand, of like de-googled OSs. But I think I forget which one I'm going to try on the other one, but there's another alternative OS I'm going to try that should work on non Google phones. But
Okay.
yeah, it is kind
Yeah.
of it's crazy just how like without Google services, just how much stuff is limited. You know.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It just makes it so easy. Like you go from let's say a Gmail, you've got your Google Maps, you've got everything on there. You go from the computer to the phone, back and forth, and It seems like it's easier as well for emails if the other person's got a yeah, everything. It seems like if you've got the Google running as well with the Chrome, it seems like everything is made to work perfectly. But again, they take all that data and they use it. Uh, you know, as we know, like I think we did not recognize that before, like that they were using all that data, but now like we see that that's what they're doing. They're just compiling everything, and they're just a big factory, same as Facebook factory of
Yeah.
keeping all the data and using it for ads and so on.
The hardest thing that I didn't realize is paying with NFC payments like tap and pay. It is virtually impossible to do that without Google search with a de-Googled phone. There's as far as I know, there's no generic like wallet that you can just put cards into that will work like that. So I hear there's some bank apps that will work, let you do NFC payments on a de-Googled phone, but since I don't have a bank account, I can't use those. So I'm trying a bunch of weird sketchy things like downloading weird little Huawei apps and stuff like that and trying to so we'll see how it works. All right. That's probably enough. Let's actually roll the intro and get going into this thing. So, hey everyone, officially happy Friday. Hope you had a good one. Welcome to the Digital Cash Rundown number 111. 111 weeks, almost in a row, that I've been doing this specific news show. And I'm joined by the one and only Sylvain Cloutier. How's it going, man?
Good. Yeah, thanks for having me again. Yeah, pleasure. And yeah, another like we said before, like another crazy week, and glad to be here to finish off the week. And also yeah, looking forward for your next show afterwards with Naomi. So I've got I'll try to entertain you as much as she will be able to, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, very different things. I'm sure her
Yeah.
thing is a lot more going to be like a serious thing of like, oh, what do you think about this? How about this? And whereas this is more
Yeah.
just like friendly talking smack about the headlines. So reminder that there's a if you have an NFT of mine, and you can go into the super chat, the NFT super chat, digital cash rundown in my Discord, and leave comments, and we'll read those off. For everyone else, have fun staying poor, I guess. But we will we will start with the first story, which is big on my kind of radar, especially this time, was the SEC, right? So just the tweet I put up is the SEC tweeted today we charged crypto asset trading platform Bittrex Incorporated and its co-founder and former CEO William Shihara for operating an unregistered national securities exchange, broker, and clearing agency. And their reasoning for doing this, that it was an unregistered securities broker, they said that they were selling unregistered securities. And they named like six tokens in particular, had some detail on those. And two of them that people would the rest no one really cares about, but the two that people recognize are Algorand and Dash. And their cases on those were I didn't really read the Algo one too much, but the case for the Dash one I'm extremely familiar with over the years, and it's extremely weak. And they even got the name of the the development, the core development team they got wrong, called Dash Control Group instead of Dash Core Group. And I don't know how you make such a dumb mistake in a lawsuit. Like
Yeah.
that's like leaving off a zero on your taxes. It's just like, how do you do this? This is crazy. So I want.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your take on this whole thing?
Yeah, that's I don't know. It seems like it came out of nowhere. I don't know. It's well, I guess it came out of nowhere, but I guess I'm not surprised on the fact that they had decided to leave the United States. Like they announced it before it actually happened. So I think something was brewing, or they probably heard of it. They probably in the last few months they were probably asked like paperwork and so on. So I think that kind of they did it just in time or something like that. But yeah, besides that, yeah, the different points I've obviously in the Dash community as well. So I've looked at the different points this week on Discord, and it seems like it's kind of shaky. And again, like you mentioned with the Dash control group, which will probably be a meme out of itself
Mm-hmm.
now. It's kind of weak, and obviously for to go to court, it's kind of you need to use the right terms, to if you wish
Yeah.
to nail someone, you need to you can't just like, oh well, it's the same thing. Well, no, it's not the same thing. You know what I mean? So that's kind
Well,
of
yeah. The funny thing about this is they're not suing. Like, I'm sure they got the name of like Bittrex and all the people involved correct, and the Dash and Algorand other stuff was just like supplemental information, where they're like, oh, by the way, this is some of our evidence that points towards this. So they're not actually suing, either of those. And one thing that's been very strange with the SEC, and I guess I'll get this out of the way. I've said it 1,000 times, I'm sure. The SEC, when they sued Library, which I've covered pretty extensively on this channel, they sued Library Inc., the company, for selling unregistered securities, being the Library token. However, they explicitly never asked the judge not to even rule on whether the Library token itself is a security. And it's the same thing with Bittrex, except they're not even going after anything Dash related. They're just saying Bittrex sold illegally sold securities, and here's kind of some of the examples, but they're not at all alleging anything about Dash in particular outside of that case, and they're not going after anyone in Dash or any other exchanges as far as I know. Like Coinbase. Coinbase has been doing this for a while, and Coinbase is going to be coming up in the news and the articles in just a second. So it's this weird situation where in my opinion, they being the SEC, they're trying to either force all these crypto exchanges out of the US and having banks and other already registered securities exchanges take the place of crypto exchanges, or they're trying to get every single crypto exchange to register as a securities exchange. And they, rather than go asset by asset or give a base criteria for, that is open to scrutiny, by the way, to show what is a security and what isn't. They're just trying to like force everyone to register as a security and then just not have to come up with any kind of actual rules as to what is or isn't, or come up with them later.
yeah, and it seems like they're just like, I think they're making their it looks like they're making the rules as they go type thing, right? They're just gonna, and why not? Like, I know they've probably included other cryptos in that, when they talked about Bittrex, but I'm sure if they're putting Dash in that basket, there should be like a shit ton of them, in that
Yeah.
same one, not just like, oh, let's pick this one, that one, and oh yeah, that's good, right? So they should probably, like, there's got to be some like strict rules to, because then you look at Reason and then you're like, well, if Dash security, then XRP already lost their case then, because they're definitely one
Yeah.
if Dash is one. So you're like,
Bitcoin
what the
too,
hell?
though. I think there's actually a stronger case that Bitcoin is because I put up on the screen a thread by
Yeah.
the Dash underscore community Twitter handle that goes through the whole thing about that, and it's basically the way they say something is a security is if someone's going to buy it and have an expectation of profit through the efforts of others. And now, first of all, Dash is not a expectation of profit kind of a coin. It's just like, this is money. You get to transact as a transaction tool, and you, as a Dash holder, can vote on its direction and figure out how it goes. And so there's no others. It's you. You join, and you have an expectation of improving, developing, whatever, on you. The difference with Bitcoin, first of all, Bitcoin is heavily marketed as an investment and not as a transactional tool. So the expectation of profit from buying Bitcoin versus buying Dash is very different. Also, there is like the Dash core developers. I don't know what the makeup is like today, but for many years they were funded primarily by a company called Blockstream, and a company that could not be fired by, you can't just like fire people like that. It's you can in Dash, but you
Yeah.
cannot in Bitcoin. So it could be very much argued that Blockstream was selling illegal securities by developing the protocol and then
Yeah.
selling Bitcoin, or not. I'm not sure about like literally selling Bitcoin, but like marketing Bitcoin. And so it's a stronger case for that, but more importantly, it's just like a ridiculous case, and that's kind of highlighted in this next little thing
Yeah.
there, which is the Gary Gensler. Did you see the parody video where you're seeing how he's deciding what's a security and what isn't?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I've seen that one. I was actually laughing. Sometimes we put like lol or whatever, but for that one I was actually laughing about
Yeah,
it. And
yeah.
Dash there. It's like yeah, that
And
was
then library, and then he throws an axe and accidentally like hits the very edge of the Ethereum one. Is like, oh, is that a
yeah.
security or not? And he's just saying like, we'll make them figure it out. It's just
Yeah,
like,
sounds like a great plan.
yeah, it's pretty insane.
Yeah.
And then you sent this one to me here about the US SEC warns advisors they need to know crypto before recommending to clients. Brokers and investment advisors have to understand crypto and ensure it's in its clients' best interest before pitching investments, the SEC staff said in a bulletin.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that actually
Yeah.
sounds kind of reasonable, but you know that because it's the SEC, they're going to just use it to sue everyone who's like a small independent, investment advisor and not a
Yeah.
a giant firm.
Yeah, it's funny that they're or now that they're like you said, like recommending BTC or being like, oh, it's that's a commodity or whatever, or like that could
Hmm.
be security as well. Because obviously, someone that's going to go see an advisor, and then the advisor, let's say he knows Bitcoin, is going to recommend it to you, and he's all like qualified and everything. But if he's going to recommend it to you, it's because he expects some kind of profit out of it. Yeah, I'm just recommending that for you to lose your money. Yeah, so it's just take that one. You lose your money, but that's fine, right? Like they're
Hmm.
not going after that attitude. So obviously they're expecting some kind of return and profit out of it. You know what I mean? So a case could be made there, like you said, right? But
Yeah, and the thing about like the securities thing, um, I don't know if there's been a single. Again, I have to do research. I don't think there's been a single cryptocurrency that the SEC has said definitively is a security. They've classified it as one. They sued Library Inc. over selling it as a security, but did not allege it was a security. And then the same thing with Bittrex and all the others. And so they also sued EOS back in the day, and EOS paid like a big fine, very small compared to how much they did for their ICO. Right? You did a securities offering, okay, whatever, but they didn't declare the EOS token, the actual coin, as security. So I can easily see this where you have, like, for example, Corey Clipston, who's the guy from like Swan Bitcoin. He's like an angry, evil maxi, just shouting at everyone all the time. And he's always saying, just buy Bitcoin. That's it. Buy Bitcoin. And his company, Swan Bitcoin, does sell Bitcoin. And it's not a registered securities exchange. So they could sue Swan Bitcoin, for example. I'm not picking as much as I don't like that guy and I don't like Swan Bitcoin. I'm not specifically picking on them, but someone like that, they could sue them and say, you are selling unregistered securities by selling people Bitcoin. Bitcoin's not an unregistered securities, but you're still selling one. And based on their
yeah,
pattern, they can do that. So I think that that's what like the maximalists are saying. You're never going to get Bitcoin. Well, first of all, they can
yeah,
by their criteria, but also I don't think they have to. They'll just go after everyone's who's selling Bitcoin as a security without calling Bitcoin a security. So yeah, there's no time for gloating on that kind of stuff.
no, yeah. I know. Yeah, it's but I think they got to come up with like something specific, and then obviously apply that throughout, or like they have to stop like just making it as it goes. And they really have to sit down and because now Bittrex. So what about the other ones? Like I'm trying to remember. Like so, I think Binance US are still there. I think so. Um, but other like Poloniex have probably left at this point. I think. Um, so there's probably a bunch of them that, well, if you go after Bittrex now, can you go after other ones like Coinbase and so
Yeah,
on? Like,
I really
might as
like
well.
I really like how you set that one up because guess what the next story is. So I just showed a tweet from Ryan Sean Adams, who's one of the bankless people, or bankless, whatever. He says Coinbase getting a Bermuda license. Cool, Gary. You're driving all the exchanges offshore. Go America. And that's exactly it. So Coinbase is going after a Bermuda license, or it got a Bermuda license, and has been kind of actively running all over the place, trying to find, basically testing the regulatory waters in other places. And so, for example, there's another tweet I put up from Brian Armstrong, the CEO or founder of Coinbase, saying, "Great meeting today with UK economic security or economic secretary and city minister. The UK is moving fast on sensible crypto regulation to both drive economic growth and consumer protection. Excited to keep investing in the UK." So they're doing business with the UK, right? And then here, Brian Armstrong quote tweeted a tweet that said, "How is it even legal for the government to approve Coinbase to go public, then to come back years later and say they're operating illegally? Why was I allowed to buy the stock then? It's not like they changed how they operated since they were approved." And Brian Armstrong said, "It's a great question." Being very vocal on this whole stuff. And then, let's see. Finally, for these two things here, he tweeted, "Spent the day in D.C. meeting with members of Congress. We need regulatory clarity for the U.S., for the centralized players in crypto, blah, 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 blah." He says the SEC has caused untold harm to America with its policy of regulation by enforcement. We will fight to fix that. So he's meeting with, with actual legislators for this. And then the final thing, and this was today, he tweeted, actually just a couple hours, he says, "Met with the SEC today. We'll continue to push for a clear rule book in the U.S. for crypto regs. The U.S. can't afford to fall behind. It's also important for regulators to set policy and then enforce it, not start with the enforcement before there are clear rules. At this point, it seems like Congress will need to step in." So he's firing all cylinders. He's a smart man who's made a lot of money on a very viable business that lots of people use. And he's starting to see it's untenable to work. So I think what he's doing is he's pushing everything he can to get the SEC reined in and get a good, I guess, framework for regulation in the U.S. that's easy to deal with, that lets businesses like his thrive. And he's pushing as hard as he can. He's also going to the SEC and saying, "Look, we don't have to be here. Like, we just got our Bermuda license. We were talking to the UK. We like the EU, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We don't need to be here. We can just cut our losses and take off. And we're pushing for Congress to kind of screw your day up." So are you going to, it's almost like a warning, like meeting with the SEC, which he has criticized, like, through this whole thing. And then finally, when he meets with them, he says, "We might need Congress to step in." In other words, like, it's war. So what is your prediction? Do you think he's going to get his way? Do you think that the SEC is either going to back off voluntarily? Do you think Congress is going to come up with some legislation that restrains the SEC, such as there's a bill in right now, I believe, or it's being drafted to fire Gary Gensler and stuff like that? Or do you think it's just not going to go anywhere and Coinbase and other big players are just going to leave the U.S. entirely? What are you betting on?
Yeah, that's a tough one, but I don't know. I have the feeling that they're gonna keep ramping up, regulations at this point, and we're probably gonna end up seeing them leaving the U.S. But hopefully, I'm wrong, I guess, in that sense, and that they find some kind of compromise. But then, why not? So now Bittrex had already left at that point. So, like, I don't know. It seems like they're going all in on that plan. I don't know for what reason. It's obviously setting, like, the U.S. back a little bit, and they're not being competitive in the world. And I thought, Europe had some policies on their side as well. Maybe they're tackling a bit more the stable coins as opposed to, like, the exchanges in general. But yeah, I think it seems like they're still going after it, especially with their plan of CBDCs or whatever the case that might be called, and planning this. I don't know. What do you think on your end?
Yeah, I have to say I don't know. I do know on the more macro thing. I know crypto is too big to fail at this point. I know the decentralized part is definitely too big to fail. The centralized part could have some issues, but I think that it's gotten big enough to where there's enough jurisdictions that will take any crypto company that brings a lot of money into it. I mean, see what happened in El Salvador, right? They did this whole like Bitcoin legalization stuff, which, has it led to a lot of actual Bitcoin usage? Probably not that much. But what it has led to is a large capital influx into the country. A lot of foreign investment has seen this as a friendly step. And I think that other countries don't need to do this whole like legal tender nonsense to attract that kind of capital. And if there's all this US capital that's just waiting to go somewhere else, I think it will go somewhere else and they will find a way to make it work. So I think it's going to be fine either way for crypto. It just might be really hard for the US. So I'm honestly feeling got to be very careful with how I say this, right? Make sure people don't say you're wrong later. I got to.
Yeah, you're wrong. Here's the recording.
I could be wrong. I'm fine with being wrong, but like I do believe that crypto will be fine in the U.S. in the territories that are considered the U.S. today in the future. Like within the next 10 years, they will be fine. Now, what I don't know is, first of all, I don't think that like the things that like Coinbase is complaining about, I don't think they're going to get resolved in the next couple of years. Like, because I just know government is slow moving, and the U.S. government, of all the governments in the world, thinks it's really untouchable. So I can't really see them changing. Oh no, it's okay. Come back, Coinbase. Like, I mean, they'll eventually do that, but I don't think that's going to happen next couple of years. So probably stuff is going to get chased out. Probably Coinbase is going to leave. Probably a bunch Kraken might leave, or like everyone's going to start to incorporate. By the time laws get passed and stuff gets reinstituted, it'll probably be midway through the next U.S. presidential cycle. Like, let's say there's an election 2024. Hopefully there will be. Otherwise, we'd have really big problems. But then say someone like DeSantis or Trump or someone else like that gets in, some Republican gets into office, they're going to be scrambling to change things. And then maybe midway through 2025, you start to see something more friendly. But by that time, a lot of stuff will be gone. Now, there's another option, which is, this is a very, very strange, I wouldn't say it's strange, but it's a nuance. A new nuance to this whole discussion is the federal versus state thing. So far, I think almost a third or around half, I don't know how many states, but a lot of U.S. states have legal marijuana. However, marijuana is federally illegal still. And at first, Colorado was the first state to legalize recreational cannabis. And what happened was, like, in the early years, there was a lot of conflict with the federal cops, because you had legally licensed operating cannabis dispensaries in Colorado getting raided by the federal police, the FBI, for example, or the ATF, I should say, it's a different organization, but they were getting raided by the federal. So the state's government, two different governments saying different things, and eventually there was enough like lack of cooperation from state authorities that the federal authorities, they just kind of gave up, and then more states. And so every single state that decriminalizes or legalizes the sale of marijuana is going against the federal government's laws. And so where it starts to get a little bit different, though, and so that's why the cannabis industry is largely a cash-only business, and banks are really scared to deal with cannabis these days, even today. Even though it's like mainstream and it's like going to be legal at any point, I guess, like federally, probably. But with crypto, what happens if you have a state like Wyoming or New Hampshire or Arizona or Florida, that's another one, just start to draft much more friendly crypto laws, but not just that, ones that are direct nullification laws that directly say the federal that say this is this despite what the federal government says. And so, like for example, there's already laws on the books in New Hampshire that exempts crypto businesses from having to register as money transmitters, and that's a federal thing. But there's that too. There's Ian Freeman, who of Free Talk Live, who got raided and is possibly facing prison because of this kind of stuff. And that's what the feds say, but the state kind of nullified it. So at some point, we'll have to see what happens. It could be that some crypto companies decide to start operating in states that say they're not going to listen to the feds. However, the feds will still come into those states and attack us. So it's very risky. So I think that even if that happens, I think that the feds are going to cause enough problems to where a crypto company will be like, well, you say I'm legal, but you guys say I'm not, and you guys can still come in and arrest me, even though you guys are not going to, like, it's too risky. I'm going to stay out of the country until you figure it out. So that just, I just don't see it very bright for U.S. companies in crypto in the next, well, not all U.S. companies, but definitely ones that exchange crypto assets. I don't see it as a bright spot for them over the next 5 years, I guess.
No,
that's my prediction, I guess. My official prediction. I'd love to be wrong, but there you go.
Yeah, because it seems like the crypto in general, and when it first started, I wasn't part of it. I wasn't looking at it. Yes, I heard about Bitcoin in 2010, but I never got into it or whatnot. So obviously, that started kind of a classic, thing, like an underground or like dark net type idea or whatever the case may be. And now it seems like it eventually got into like the DeFi, the pseudo bank, pretty much like Nexo and Celsius and those guys. And now it seems like a lot of them are having issues. And now it seems like we're going back to more like where it started, where more classic coins, like I was kind of predicting that like recently, like the Zcash, Dash, like Litecoin, those kind of classic, if we can say it, coins would come back strong because because of the regulations and the way you can use it, as opposed like Monero and whatever else, as opposed to like the banks, pseudo banks, because they have to be registered and people won't go through them and it's going to be difficult. And if you're, let's say, in Canada, in the US, maybe like that service I can't use, so I got to do something else. But everyone could do like the Monero, Zcash, or whatever, right? So they could do all that stuff. But yeah, so that's what I'm thinking, that it's good, I guess, for Dash as a whole and other cryptos like that. I think because it's coming back to that, I think.
Yeah, I definitely think that that's going to be a big thing where the less likely to be a security ones, the more decentralized assets are going to become more popular. Yeah. Because in the beginning, obviously, it was Bitcoin, and then everyone was trying to be based on Bitcoin. Well, it's like, well, we're doing what Bitcoin did, but with some tweaks. And even up to like 2017, everyone pretended to be decentralized still, even when they weren't. But then this last 2020, 2021 bull market, a lot of projects, just like Solana, just didn't even care. Just like, I don't care. And we're not going to pretend. We're like a centralized shitcoin. We don't care. And then now that's going to be very risky in the future. And it's going to be like a hipster thing where everyone's going back to driving like a manual transmission car. It's going to be the hipster era of crypto. But it's also, I think it's going to really sort of make it much more attractive for people to be paid in crypto for goods and services, because that's not illegal. And right now it's just like everyone wants to be paid in fiat because that's what they pay their bills with. And then you're going to get a company that earns only crypto and just, okay, well, I'll just sell some and then I'll pay someone with fiat on the payroll side. And they just like, that's easy. However, in the future, first of all, it'll be a lot. And then say someone wants to get paid in crypto, but they're like, you know what? I'll just get paid regularly. I won't mess with it. I'll just buy crypto on the side. First off, if it becomes more difficult to buy crypto on the side, they will want to get paid in it. so they don't have to do that. And then
Yeah.
if the company finds it difficult to just sell crypto so they can pay their employees in fiat, they would rather just pay them straight in crypto. So I think it's going to start to, it's going to be a lot. The fiat on ramps for crypto are going to become a lot more difficult in the US. It's going to be constricted where it's not
Yeah.
everyone's buying crypto. It's going to be a very much smaller percentage of people who sign up for these registered securities exchanges or whatever, and they buy, I guess, the one crypto that's not, let's say Bitcoin, for example, that's not considered a security. Well, again, we went over the nuance of that before, but they buy that, then they just turn on their VPN, plug into Thorchain or Maya or something, go and swap it for whatever token they want, and then it's there. It's really going to
Yeah.
segregate the crypto and fiat worlds more apart, I think. And it's also going to segregate the KYC crypto and the no KYC crypto world. It's just like cash. With every small business, I don't know how much it's like that in Canada, but in the US, every small business loves to take payments in cash, and I'm sure a lot of them don't report it at the end of the day. They're just like, oh yeah, I'll just take some cash. And so, obviously they mostly pay their taxes. I'm just saying, what happens. So I think it'll start to become that with crypto too. It's just like, oh, well,
Yeah.
can you send crypto to me from your self-custody wallet?
Yeah, exactly. And that could even like be a thing where, you know, because now with the CBDC, they're trying to, obviously avoid that, make sure people like go through the system so they're recognized, right? So you can't just have someone doing renovation to your place and give him like $1,000 and all right, here we go. You did the work, but it would have cost way more because then I have to declare it, charge you some taxes on it, and then so on. So that could be a thing where the crypto might come handy at that point to alleviate a bit of that. Not entirely, but
Yeah.
now there was also another article that
Oh, here we
I think
go.
I
Here we go.
shared with the
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 EU.
I'm good at rolling things over to articles today. It seems.
Yeah, of course. So the
Yeah,
EU votes for payment limits on anonymous crypto wallet transactions. It says EU lawmakers have voted in favor of imposing limits on transactions carried out by anonymous and unverified cryptocurrency users, i.e., anyone, as part of the bloc's new I'm tripping over my voice today. Anti-money laundering measures. The measures are meant to prevent cryptocurrencies, NFTs, and the metaverse from being utilized for financial crimes. The new law prohibits traders from making or receiving anonymous crypto transfers exceeding 1,000 euros, which is large transactions are permitted if they can do the KYC. But it says crypto transfers between private individuals, such as large payments between friends, will still be allowed. That is a strange caveat and stuff. So, first of all, what's your hot take on this thing?
well, when I first read one of the first sentence there, it sounds like from being used for financial crimes, it seems like the only reason why you would use crypto would be to, to commit crimes. Anyway, that twist sounded like that a bit, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
come on, like there's other ways to use like crypto than financial crimes. Like I've used crypto, obviously not as you have in the last few
Mm-hmm.
years, but it's obviously not for crimes. Like I've used stuff on Amazon and with like a Dash purchased card and so on. So it's like, oh, I didn't know that was crime, right?
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, so it's kind of funny. And then you allow people to between themselves, no restriction. Is that what they were saying? But that could be for that possible crime then. So it's kind of a caveat that doesn't really make sense. And
Mm-hmm.
but again, it goes in line with the rest of the policies in general that it's not clearly defined, it's not well thought, it's not there's still works to be done, when it comes to like policies and regulations. So I'm not surprised, and it's kind of funny at times when you hear them talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's for sure. One thing that I think is strange about these laws and stuff, right? Because laws don't make sense, right? They're creating a framework that they think just makes sense. It just sounds good on paper. They like what they can do. It it's divorced from the reality of what will happen if they enact these rules. But it's so first of all, if you're making payments or transfers of over €1,000, you need to register. If not, you're fine. But like, how many transfers of €1,000 can you make? At what point does it make, like, I know in the US has similar cash payment laws where I believe you can make payments of up to 10,000 under $10,000. If it hits $10,000, you have to like notify the IRS that you're making this big thing. Or if you look like you're structuring a payment, that's the terminology, where you do like three different payments of like 4,000 to like break it up so you stay under the, that makes it look like that, then they can still report you, for example. And so I'm sure it's something like that where you can make as many payments as you want of under €1,000 as long as it doesn't look like you're clearly trying to get around the law. The other thing, when it says payments to friends and family will still, large crypto transfers will still be allowed. So if I want to send, I mean, you're my buddy. What if I send you like €8,000 worth of stuff because I really like you one day? It's just like, okay, well, I don't have to register because you're my friend. And then you just like, I'm conspicuously like, you're just doing so much work for production work for me on the side for like the next couple of years for some reason, like, just because he's my friend. Like, at what point is it ridiculous, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can give him like all the money because it's kind of a friend of a friend of a friend, or whatnot. And I'm not going through that service. Yeah, I guess they could track it with like at stores and online and stuff like that. But yeah, it's kind of shaky. So I think they're trying to bring regulations, but I don't know if it makes sense really. Like when it comes to using it. I mean, they set those restrictions and banks still like okay, well you're only allowed 10 grand. Or for 24 hours, or depending, like I'm pushing it a bit because it's probably not that much, but I'm just giving a number, and then you got to ask to lift that because you've got a special transaction you got to make because you did house renovation and it costs like 25 grand, so you got to call them in advance to make sure it goes through.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like it's all like it's a bunch of not nonsense, but it's not really defined, and it's kind of yeah.
Yeah. Uh, as a final thing on that note, the European Parliament put a tweet about these crypto regulations, and Coinbase quote tweeted this and said, "The European Parliament's adoption of MiCA, whatever that is a pivotal moment for crypto regulation. This comprehensive framework will give crypto organizations the confidence to invest and grow in the region." So it sounds like Coinbase likes these new rules. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know why they like these new rules? Well, first of all, because they just like rules so they can operate. That's number one. Second, these rules
Yeah.
hurt competitors because if they're Coinbase is a KYC platform that not only lets you buy and sell and trade and all that kind of stuff, but has a Coinbase wallet that's tied to your account that they encourage you to use to send and receive. So if I want to send to you, like say I have a Coinbase account, I want to send to you in your Edge wallet or whatever, I can only send up under €1,000 before I have to like do KYC on you or like show that I know who you are. But if you have a Coinbase account, I can send as much as I want to you because we're both registered. We're not anonymous now. And guess what? Coinbase wins out big in that situation. So just when we're talking about poor Coinbase and how you have to leave the US and all that stuff, they're kind of into the crony stuff a little bit too, it might seem.
No, yeah. Yeah, when it comes to doing business, it's hard to stay like decentralized. Like it seems like and then for people that have invested or whatever in crypto per se, and it's not financial advisement or anything, but it seems like if they invest and I think I lost my train of thought there, but
Yeah.
but What was I going after? I had something that I wanted to say.
I don't
We
know,
were talking
but
about Coinbase.
and how they benefit from regulation in this case.
Yeah, yeah. So these companies obviously they have to run like different things. Same thing as centralized coins. It seems like yes, you're going to get more returns because the CEO or a business running the show, running the marketing, getting partnerships and so on. But it seems that if you go after like a decentralized, now you're not getting that, but you're not getting the return. So it's like obviously Coinbase is more of a company with like partnerships and so on, and yeah, and it seems like obviously they're going to comply with some of the rules and try to use that into their advantage, if I can say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I recovered my what I wanted to talk about. Yeah, so essentially that's what that is, because I was, as we see now, besides a few different coins, we've seen a lot of older coins kind of dying. There's a few developers working on the project, but it's still decentralized and everything. But hasn't seen a bull market in the last 5 or 6 years, and we don't know if it's going to die or not. But it's still decentralized, and they don't have any partnerships. So there's a big like um,
Mm-hmm.
difference between the two types of projects. But obviously, Coinbase is more towards that type where it's like it's obviously a company. Obviously, they're not crypto, but they're going to do more regulated stuff and be on that side of the fence, if
Yeah,
that
for
makes
sure.
sense.
Yeah, it definitely does. Interesting times we live in for sure. This is probably a good time to wrap this whole thing up. Where can people find more about your stuff? It's shill-o'clock.
Yeah, shill-o'clock. Yeah, that's right. You told me about that. Um, yeah, I wish I could. Maybe I'll put it in the YouTube description. But I could
Mm-hmm.
be like I'm active on Twitter quite a bit. It's at SYL Cloutier. So oh yeah, you see my name there. So you see the last name there. It's just SYL Cloutier. So
Mm-hmm.
that's my handle on Twitter. You can find me on there. Share the different videos. I'm pretty much active in many communities and and so on. I try to be active, trying to learn as much as possible, and I'm also host of well, I used to call it Zone Crypto Zone, but
Mm-hmm.
it's La Vie en Bloc now, which is like La Vie en Rose. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a way of living, and then that was kind of my idea with like La Vie en Bloc, which is like living with blocks, or however you want to think about it. I was referring to obviously blockchain and crypto. So I wanted to bring it like a step further than just like talking about crypto, but like living it. So that was kind of the idea. So I'm doing that one in French, and obviously I'm targeting more like the beginners, trying to get introduced to like wallets and learn about that stuff, not to be scared when sending a transaction, know where to go, know where to get wallets, cold wallets, the different types. So I've been running like different tutorials as of late, trying to really get that the beginner, and then obviously I can later on touch a bit more advanced stuff. But yeah, I'm focusing in French for that one because I don't know. I decided that is a small crowd for now, but I think if you can help, obviously, if you see my post tweets on Twitter, you can just share them, and obviously that's you may not speak um, French, but if you share it to other people, obviously people will see it and eventually be part of it, and um, yeah, and I could go on like any podcast. I'm good in English as well, so I can do that
Mm-hmm.
definitely. And yeah, so it's really about that new show that I'm going for, trying to get a new crowd, be part of. Like I'm trying to discuss with other like I know there was a Z Cash Global, I think.
Mm-hmm.
There's French communities and different little cryptos and so on. So I'm trying to get active in that, trying to form like a Franco discussion eventually to
Yeah.
that. But again, I'm also active in the English side as well whenever I need to, and it's obviously uh, a solid 98% of it is in English, so that's totally fine.
Okay. Well, great. Well, thanks everyone
Yeah,
for tuning in. I got to do the Zcash podcast with Naomi Brockwell next, i.e., like in like 3 minutes. So hop off to
yeah,
that link. It's going to be a good time. Thanks very much, Sylvan. Everyone have a great
yeah.
weekend and watch the other podcast. I'll see you guys around. Bye bye.
Bye bye.